Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and you're watching a special broadcast here on DD India. India on Wednesday attacked 9 sites in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir in retaliation against the 22nd April Pahalgam terror attack. That's the big news we're tracking here on DD India. An Indian Defence Ministry statement said the Indian Armed Forces hit terrorist infrastructure as part of an operation codenamed Sindoor. The statement said, and I quote, "Our actions have been focused, measured and non-escalatory in nature. No Pakistani military facilities have been targeted. India has demonstrated considerable restraint in selection of targets and method of execution," unquote. The statement also said, "We are living up to the commitment that those responsible for this attack will be held accountable." The Indian Embassy in the US put out a separate statement, and I quote, "India has credible leads, technical inputs, testimony of the survivors and other evidence pointing towards the clear involvement of Pakistan-based terrorists in this attack." It went on to say, "India's actions have been focused and precise. They were measured, responsible and designed to be non-escalatory in nature. No Pakistani civilian, economic or military targets have been hit. Only known terror camps were targeted." And shortly after these strikes, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval spoke with US NSA and Secretary of State Marco Rubio and briefed him on the actions taken, unquote. That's the big news we're tracking. And India saying justice is served. Jai Hind. That's a big message coming out this Wednesday morning local time. And joining me on the phone line is my colleague Arun Sharma. Arun, walk us through the details you were able to pick up.
And yes, of course, as you rightly mentioned, justice served. Jai Hind. But primarily, we know this fact that today the Operation Sindoor has been conducted, and a mix of airstrikes and artillery strikes were conducted, and 9 terrorist outfits of the infrastructure have been demolished by India. And we know this fact that Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was constantly monitoring this entire situation and this entire operation throughout the night. And we also know this fact that earlier also when it conducted the surgical strikes on Pakistan, at the time also Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was constantly monitoring this entire operation. Now we know this fact, Ramesh, that Prime Minister Narendra Modi, when he was on his Saudi Arabia tour, he did cut short his entire visit, and he returned back, and immediately after that he started taking the high-level security meeting, and various meetings were conducted that included, more than 2 CCS meetings, and of course meetings with the top security chiefs in of our country. So this, clearly gives the message that how important this was for India. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as we all know that from the soil of Bihar, he said this point that those who are behind terrorism and the terrorist activity, all those who are supporting terrorists and the terrorist organization, and those behind this Pahalgam terror attack, accountable for the Pahalgam terror attack, justice, will be done with these kind of activities, and that's what India has done today. 9 terror outfits, and that have been demolished. And we know this fact that India's actions were very much precise in nature. It has ensured that no civilians were targeted. That means the only outfits where the terror.
Right, Arun, do stay on. Let me recap the developments over the last several hours for the benefit of our viewers who might be just tuning in. India has responded to the 22nd April Pahalgam attacks by carrying out strikes on terrorist infrastructure both inside Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. India targeting 9 places or sites in all. And India is saying, and I quote, "Our actions have been focused, measured and non-escalatory in nature." And India's NSA Ajit Doval has since briefed his US counterpart Marco Rubio. The Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has put out a tweet saying Bharat Mata Ki Jai, and US President Donald Trump has also spoken out on the issue, saying he hopes the developments and the tensions end quickly. Now, this is day 16 since the Pahalgam terror attack, and in the last several hours, India has taken kinetic action targeting terrorist infrastructure, in particular inside Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. And joining me for more on this developing story is my colleague Akshay Dongre. Also joining me is Lieutenant General Rameshwar Yadav, retired. Akshay, to you first, your information on the strikes that were carried out several hours ago.
Well, Ramesh, what we are getting information from credible sources in the Indian Armed Forces is that the Indian Air Force, Indian Navy and Indian Army have conducted this operation in very close coordination. As we have rightly seen that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has not only held meeting with the National Security Advisor alone, he has also met the Defense Secretary, he has met the Defense Minister, he has met the chiefs of all the three armed forces of India, the Indian Navy, the Indian Air Force and the Indian Army. So as far as this operation is concerned, it is a textbook example of how theaterization also is working as far as the operations are concerned. So the Air Force has played its own part as far as these attacks are concerned. The Indian Army was also in the supporting role, as well as the Indian Navy. So all sort of actions have been taken, but the kind of strategy that has been picked up by the Indian Armed Forces is in fact remarkable. Earlier it was announced that a joint exercise by the Indian Air Force will be carried out at the borders with Pakistan. So there was a no-time issue, that is notice to the airmen, that is usually conducted before aerial exercises or any these kind of operations. So clearly, while it was claimed that there will be an exercise, and no-time was supposedly for this exercise that was going to be conducted today, but the strikes in fact were done at a time when Pakistan was least expecting it, ensuring the safety of the armed forces personnel who were involved in this retribution attack against the Pakistani terror infrastructure that is not only located in one part, but these attacks have been conducted, according to sources, at 9 places. Now there are not all in the Pakistan occupied Kashmir. There are reportedly places such as Sialkot, Muridke, Bahawalpur. All of these areas have also been struck by the Indian Armed Forces. So it's very key to see that how the close coordination was maintained by the Indian Armed Forces, how a secrecy was maintained, and entire strategic maneuvering was done as far as this attack was conducted, and now Pakistan, there are reports coming in that there is shelling happening by the Pakistani armed forces from inside the Pakistan occupied Kashmir region, as well as in other parts as well. So for that, since there was a close coordination among all the armed forces, this was expected. So that is the best part about this attack and this coordination, that any kind of retaliation was expected, and all preparations were done in accordance to the attack in Pakistan as well.
Right, Akshay, do stay on. Let me go across to General Yadav, a former Director General Infantry of the Indian Army. General Yadav, welcome to this special broadcast. Your take or your thoughts on Operation Sindoor. What can you tell us about the selection of targets and the method of execution? General, could you unmute yourself, please?
Ramesh, Bharat Mata Ki Jai to all the viewers.
Bharat Mata Ki Jai. Good morning, General.
Good morning. And I think this was a day what everybody in this country, they have been waiting for. And early in the morning, we have got the results. 9 targets have been hit. They are in Pakistan as well as the POK. And if you look at the distribution, primarily these are Bahawalpur, then Muridke, that is near Lahore, and remainder 7 objectives, they have been in POK. And these are the ones which are primarily well-known terrorist camps, where terrorists, they are trained and they are housed there. So therefore, these strikes are very precise and very measured by the Indian Air Force, and they have created sufficient impact.
Right. So as General Yadav is pointing, yes, General.
So basically, what we have done as per our policy, we have not hit any of the civilian targets. We have hit only well-known terrorist targets and the terrorist camps. So it is actually means intelligence-based damage to the normal civilians. Only the militants and the terrorists, they are being attacked, and their training major training center. Bahawalpur is a training center and their major headquarters of Jaish-e-Mohammed, and Muridke near Lahore. It is the training center and headquarters of Lashkar-e-Taiba. These two groups which have been responsible for militant activities within JNK. So it is a befitting response that India has given. At the same time, they have taken care that no civilians are targeted. Ramesh?
Right. So as General Yadav is pointing out, the 9 sites targeted and hit by the Indian Armed Forces also included the Jaish-e-Mohammed's headquarters in Bahawalpur in Pakistan and the Lashkar-e-Taiba facility in Muridke. Those were the 2 of the 9 sites targeted by the Indian Armed Forces several hours ago as part of a retaliation to the 22nd April Pahalgam terror attack. Coming back to you, Akshay. Now, the MOD statement, the Defense Ministry statement is very clear. It says that Operation Sindoor hit out at the terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, where terrorist attacks against India have been planned and directed. And our actions, and I'm quoting the statement here, have been focused, measured and non-escalatory in nature. No Pakistani military facilities have been targeted. It goes on to say India has demonstrated considerable restraint in the selection of targets and method of execution. What more can you tell us, Akshay?
Well, absolutely, Ramesh. As far as retaliation is concerned, the response by the Indian Armed Forces has been very calibrated and very. They have showed considerable restraint. In fact, talking about terror infrastructure, terror camps, Pakistan as a whole, the entire country, military, the government, the intelligence agencies, they have all been working with the terror groups in close coordination. So it would be safe to say that the entire country is a terror camp as far as the entire region is concerned. Pakistan has been a menace to the world. However, the world has failed to act time and again when it comes to countries such as the US, the UK, the NATO members. Many of them have been also victims of these terror attacks emanating from Pakistan or executed by Pakistani homegrown groups. However, what the world has failed to act at, India has, and as far as the attacks are concerned, swiftly, as we saw, the kind of calibration that has to be done as far as the response is concerned, that was also measured. So I would like to read a statement by the ADGPI, the Indian Army, soon after what happened in the region. According to this tweet, Pakistan has violated the ceasefire agreement again by firing artillery in Bimber Gully in Poonch Rajouri area. So we are talking about Jammu and Kashmir, where artillery firing has been conducted by Pakistan, and in fact it's carried out by Pakistani armed forces that are stationed there. The Indian armed forces are responding in a calibrated manner and in a swift manner. So that's the benefit of joint operations or theaterization of the armed forces. That is in fact the response to these kind of terror attacks or these kind of challenges that the armed forces have to face. There is a close coordination required by the armed forces, and this is in fact one of the finest examples in modern warfare, how a country such as Pakistan that also has a lot of aircraft when it comes to fighter jets. It also has a lot of infrastructure to protect these terror groups. That was all bypassed, and when the world slept, the Indian Armed Forces struck these factories of terrorists who have been not only attacking India but have been a menace to the rest of the world as well. So what we are observing right now, what the Indian Armed Forces are also observing right now, is a possibility of a retaliation by the Pakistani Armed Forces, and the kind of problems that we saw after the Balakot attack. There was if there was ever any lapses, they have been rectified over these years.
Right. Akshay, do stay on. We are getting some more information about the Air India flights. We'll put up that information on your screens in a moment. Air India putting out a tweet, a post on social media platform X. We'll bring you that up in just a bit. There we go. It says travel advisory, and it reads, in view of the prevailing situation, Air India has cancelled all its flights to and from the following stations: Jammu, Srinagar, Leh, Jodhpur, Amritsar, Bhuj, Jamnagar, Chandigarh and Rajkot till 12 noon on 7th May, pending further updates from authorities. 2 international flights en route to Amritsar are being diverted to Delhi. We regret the inconvenience caused due to this unforeseen disruption. For more information, please call our contact center on 011 6932 9333 or 011 6932 9999, or visit their website at airindia.com. That's the message put out by Air India just a short while ago, saying the cancellation of its flights to and from at least a handful of airports. Right. General Yadav, if I can come to you, we've seen 2 Indian Army posts on social media platform X. The first one read, and I'm quoting it, the statement here, it says, "Justice is served, Jai Hind, Operation Sindoor." And as my colleague Akshay was pointing out, another statement coming a short while ago saying Pakistan again violates the ceasefire agreement by firing artillery in Bimber Gully in Poonch, Rajouri area. The Indian Army, it says, is responding appropriately in a calibrated manner. Your thoughts on how the operation is progressing?
You see, these ceasefire violations have been taking place for quite some time, so there is nothing new about it.
Okay.
And as far as retaliation with Pakistan is concerned, now they are under compulsion. You see, these strikes have been done by the Rafale aircraft with a Scalp missile from the VBR mode, that is beyond visual ranges. So we have not crossed the LC or the IB. That is number 1 point. Now, in case Pakistan crosses our borders, that means it is Pakistan that is going to escalate the ante. So therefore, Pakistan has a compulsion as of now whether to take that risk or not. In case Pakistan crosses our borders and sends their aircraft inside, other than the normal RT and small arm fire that goes on LC, I think that is a normal routine thing. So there is nothing much to worry about. However, in case they escalate and start the air battle, in that case, the onus of starting this would be on the Pakistan, and thereafter our hands are going to be free to initiate harsher measures on Pakistan. So, Ramesh?
Right. So, as General Yadav, as you were mentioning, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said Rafale aircraft were used in Operation Sindoor, point number 1. And number 2, the Indian aircraft stayed on the Indian side of the line of control. They did not cross either the LOC or the international border. Am I correct?
Correct. This is what the media picked up from the media.
Right. So that's corroborates again the Indian statement, which says that these measures, actions have been focused, measured, and more importantly non-escalatory nature.
Non-escalatory.
Indeed, and that no Pakistani military facilities have been targeted. India, it says, has demonstrated considerable restraint in selection of targets and method of execution. Akshay, just to build on the point General Yadav was making there, the 2 of the 9 sites targeted in those strikes included the Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorist infrastructure in Bahawalpur and also the LET infrastructure in Muridke.
See the kind of locations that have been pinpointed as far as these calibrated and non-escalatory strikes are concerned is the fact that they have been very precision based. To once again picking up the point from where you left, Muridke and Bahawalpur are deep inside Pakistani territory. They are not in the Pakistani occupied Kashmir area, but they are inside the Pakistani territory. For example, Bahawalpur is located about 100 kilometers from the Indian border. Muridke is about 30 kilometers inside. So whatever kind of weaponry has been used, whatever has been the method of execution has been precision based. While there are certain reports stating that scalp missiles from the Rafale fighter aircraft have been used, we will wait for the officials to shed more light on this. Perhaps General Yadav can also shed more light on the weaponry that has been used, but also loitering ammunition and scalp missiles are being mentioned as the modes of attack as far as attacks inside these regions are concerned. Now, as far as these weaponry are concerned, we have significantly improved these weapons. Many of them have been made. There have been changes that were made to these weaponry to ensure that they work well with the Indian fighter jets and other kind of equipment that have to fire these missiles, and their range is quite significant, their precision is quite significant. So all of these defense procurement and indigenization and modernization of the armed forces has finally resulted in a kind of an attack that was expected after such a dastardly terror attack that was carried out by Pakistan. Clearly the Pakistani leadership, the Pakistani government, especially the military leadership, has gone in denial. There are reports coming in, fake news being spread, propaganda being done. So that is what we have to guard against at this point in time before Pakistan, as General Yadav was saying, acts out of compulsion, because the bravado and the kind of chest thumping that was being done by the Pakistani armed forces, especially under General Munir, was in fact being seen inside Pakistan, especially as some sort of an achievement that was done by the Pakistani armed forces, and the response has been swift. The kind of attacks that were being planned, that were being carried out, were continuous. For the past 12 days, we have seen that Pakistani armed forces also have been violating ceasefire, using small arms to fire at the Indian soldiers, and they were Indian side has been retaliating. However, the fact remains that Pakistan needed this response from the Indian side, and the world also needed this response from India for these terror factories to at least come to a halt. And however, the entire job is not done. It will be soon done by the Indian Armed Forces.
Right. So as we are waiting for a detailed briefing on Operation Sindoor, Akshay, General Yadav, if I can come back to you, like I was mentioning, we are waiting for a detailed briefing on the Operation Sindoor by the Indian Armed Forces as well as the government. As you was mentioning a short while ago, the onus now is clearly on Pakistan to, contain the fallout of these strikes. India is prepared for any eventuality, but all eyes now on Pakistan's response to these strikes.
You see, Ramesh, what we have actually done is we have demonstrated superior technology.
Mm-hmm.
Now a message is going across, look, we have this technology and we can take down targets with the utmost precision wherever we want. And Scalp missile, as you know, it is a precision guided missile, and 100% result oriented, and it avoids radar also. So in case Pakistan escalates and hits any of our military target or civilian target, so what we have tried to convey a message to them, then thereafter we will be free to strike your military target and your civilian targets. So better be aware. So it is a very big message that is going on. And Ramesh, you know, technology plays a major role in winning wars. And if you look at the history anywhere in the world, whichever side has got superior technology, they have been the victor. So this is what a message we have conveyed. We have said, look, we have gone after the terror and not the past civilian society or even past military, which are the perpetrators of this entire crime that has taken place few days back. So that is a message that is getting across. Now ball is in Pakistan court whether they want to escalate it, and in case they escalate, they know a message has been conveyed, what will happen to them. Ramesh?
And that said, General Yadav, the fact that India is mentioned in two separate statements issued by India in New Delhi and in Washington, D.C., we have India's reiterating that no Pakistani civilian, economic or military targets have been hit. Only known terror camps were targeted. This is clearly a message intended for consumption across many world capitals as we speak.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is what it is. Now, if we look at the bigger picture, besides the military action is always the last, is a instrument of last resort. This is what India has done. But prior to that, what we have done, if you look at a diplomatic level, suspension of Indian water treaty and other diplomatic measures that we have taken, stoppage of trade and stoppage of people coming in and going out. So these are all cumulatively, if you look at it, the impact on Pakistan is going to be colossal, and primarily the economy of Pakistan, which is already in the doldrums, and this is how we are taking on Pakistan. It is a hybrid war, and we are using all the possible tools that we have to perpetuate, means to initiate this hybrid war, and and I'm sure the results are going to be superb. And we have fired the first shot. And as far as military action is concerned, let us say what is the response of Pakistan now.
Right.
And we will respond accordingly.
Indeed. General, do stay on. We're getting some more information this time again from Ministry of Defence, Government of India. It's put out a statement on social media platform X, and I am quoting the statement here. It says, India has launched Operation Sindoor, a precise and restrained response to the barbaric Pahalgam terror attack that claimed 26 lives, including one Nepali citizen. Focused strikes were carried out on 9 terrorist infrastructure sites in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, targeting the roots of cross-border terror planning. Importantly, no Pakistani military facilities were hit, reflecting India's calibrated and non-escalatory approach. This operation underscores India's resolve to hold perpetrators accountable while avoiding unnecessary provocation. A detailed briefing on the operation will follow later today, unquote. Akshay, your thoughts on this, another statement put out by the Ministry of Defence and the import of what it contains.
Question, please.
We're just reading out a Ministry of Defence statement, again, put out on social media platform. It details the Operation Sindoor and why it was undertaken in the first place. Walk our viewers through the import of what is contained in this statement.
Well, as far as this statement by the Ministry of Defence is concerned, clearly we are speaking to the world that why these attacks were necessary, why India was forced to take these retaliatory attacks against Pakistan after continuous ceasefire violation, after continuous terror attacks. We have seen Pulwama attack, we have seen now Pahalgam attack. This time around, tourists were identified, their religion checked, and they were shot dead. The kind of barbarism that is not seen anywhere around the world. The response that has come in from a Ministry of Defence is for our country as well, to ensure that the actions that have been taken have been non-escalatory, because there have been fears that any kind of retaliation by India could stoke war. However, that is not the motive of the Indian Armed Forces, and the attack that has taken place and the actions that have been taken against the terror groups and terror outfits inside Pakistan. So you have to just go and see the kind of situation that is there for the locals, the kind of artillery shelling that is being done, the kind of ceasefire violation that have been done by Pakistanis, to also many a times give shelter and covering fire to any kind of infiltrations by terrorists. So cross border firings are done at one area from another area, while Indian armed forces are occupied. The ISI, the Pakistan Army, infiltrates intruders, militants, terrorists inside Indian territory. So this has been a plan that has been in the making for a long time. Identified of all of these 9 areas that have been struck has been done with the help of intelligence, with the help of our secret intelligence services, as well as the Indian Armed Forces, given the fact that these areas have been long identified as terror hubs. These areas have been long used by these terror groups as launch pads. So if you see all of these areas, all of the 9 areas, be it Murid Ke, be it Sialkot, Bahawalpur, other areas that are in the Pakistani occupied Kashmir area, they're all very close, except Bahawalpur with the borders of India, except Bahawalpur, that is about 100 kilometers inside, that is seen as a major terror hub, and established deeper inside Pakistan, so that the Indian Armed Forces cannot attack them or cannot take any action against them. However, they remain launchpad for terrorists. They remain launchpad for any kind of nefarious activities. There have been drug trafficking going on from Pakistan. They have been trying to send drones, and they have been trying to send illegal arms. So all of these groups have been trying to engage India in not just one front, but in many fronts, and that exactly has been responded to by the Indian Armed Forces, and the action that has been taken by the government of India to strike all of these locations after proper identification of the people who are residing in these areas, who have been hardened terrorists, who have been trained, who have been radicalized, and they were rather living with only one aim, that was to cause terror in not just Pakistan occupied Kashmir or our Jammu and Kashmir, but also across the country, killing several civilians. So this action was necessary to prevent any of that from happening.
Indeed. And General Yadav, just so our viewers get a better idea of the Operation Sindoor and its selection of targets and method of execution. We saw what happened in 2019 with the Balakot airstrike, but this time around, the Indian Armed Forces hitting the Punjabi heartland, as it were, Western Punjab in Pakistan, including, as my colleague was mentioning, Bahawalpur and Murid Ke as well. They're targeting the specific terror infrastructure obtaining in that province.
Ramesh, yes, this is, we have crossed the IB. I mean, as far as weaponry is concerned, not physically any of our equipment. So yes, they have taken on Punjab, 2 targets in Punjab and other 7 targets in Jammu and Kashmir. And within Jammu and Kashmir, the major targets like Kotli, Bimba, Poonch, these are opposite Jammu region, and the Muzaffarabad and the camps around them, and those are opposite the valley. So therefore, they have covered the very big ground. And another point if we look at the big picture, what India has done, number one, they have kept the sentiments of international community in mind, because they have been saying, look, do carry out operation, but see to it that it should not spill out in form of a regional war. So that has been ensured as of now. Second thing is, we have demonstrated our technological superiority. And the third is, we have conveyed an intention of terror and not to the civil population or the military. And thereby doing this, and when we correlate it with other measures which we have taken earlier at diplomatic and political level, so the theory of 1,000 cuts, what Pakistan propagates through terrorists, we have reverted this entire thing. Now with all these measures, we have initiated our own 1,000 cuts on Pakistan and primarily the economy. So this is how. So it is going to be a sample, an example in times to come to study how well India has planned their campaign against Pakistan. Ramesh?
Indeed, General Yadav, do stay on. I believe my colleague Akshay has an update for us. Akshay?
We are getting a statement from Marco Rubio, who is saying that the US is also monitoring situation between India and Pakistan. So clearly international pressure also now coming on Pakistan as far as these terror groups are concerned, and the terror outfits that are operating from the Pakistani soil as well as from Pakistan occupied Kashmir. The kind of outpouring of messages that are coming in from world leaders clearly has meant that the action that has been taken by India has been noticed within a few minutes across the world. Several world leaders have already are issuing statement, and while many of them have been silent on the kind of terror attacks that are consistently happening from Pakistani soil. Leaders are now talking about a peaceful solution. This is in fact a burden that has been taken by the Indian Armed Forces, by the Indian government to act against terror groups that are not only threatening the region but the entire world. Clearly the action has in fact triggered a chain reaction in Pakistan, from fake news to propaganda to denial. Everything you can see in Pakistan. In fact, the Pakistani Twitter is right now filled with various misleading claims about action being taken by Pakistan and damage inside airports, Indian airports, and all of those fake tweets are sharing older images of earlier crashes elsewhere in the world to pacify the Pakistani janta, the Pakistani public, because clearly this is in fact a very, very embarrassing moment for not only the civil leadership but also the military leadership that has been warmongering, that has been chest thumping, that has been supporting terror groups to attack and kill civilians inside another country. Back to you, Ramesh.
Right, so as my colleague Akshay was reporting there, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has responded to the Indian strikes. He says the US is monitoring the situation. That's the latest news we are tracking here on DD India News Hub. General Yadav, on that point, you were mentioning about how India kept the global sentiment in mind while planning for and executing these strikes targeting the terror infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan occupied Kashmir. In the last several hours, we've heard from President Trump himself. He hopes the tensions will end quickly. And the Indian NSA, Ajit Doval, has spoken to Marco Rubio as well. So your thoughts on the way the US has been responding to the Indian strikes?
Of US few days back, he has said, look, whatever action you take, it should not convert into a regional war. So this is what has been ensured. Not only that, entire world is against terror and terrorism. And this is what India has done in this campaign. They have hit the terror infrastructure and the terrorists. And it is based on actionable intelligence. So therefore, means we have taken care of every possible contingency that may arise, and we have also taken action in a manner that it should not escalate. And if it escalates, the onus lies with the Pakistan. And therefore, the Pakistan has a compulsion now. Whatever they do, they have to do it. They have to think twice. That is number one point. The second point is, what can they do as of now? What I can appreciate that there is going to be heightened air activity all around the IB. That is number one. It's basically to demonstrate to their own constituency that we are taking action. Secondly, I'm sure the ISPR is going to conduct a kind of a press briefing or something, thereby denying, look, yes, something has come in, but it has not caused any damage to us or very minor damage, or it has, like last time in Balakot, they tried to demonstrate, look, the bombs have not hit the actual area, it has hit some trees or something all around. So something of that kind of denial campaign is going to be on in Pakistan as of now. But I do not appreciate that there are going to be major escalation by Pakistan as of now, because their hands are tied. They have no reason to retaliate in the way we have gone about.
Right. General Yadav and my colleague Akshay, do stay on. We are getting some more inputs. This is from U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He has put out a statement on social media platform X, and I am quoting from his statement here. He says, I am monitoring the situation between India and Pakistan closely. I echo U.S. President's comments earlier today that this hopefully ends quickly and will continue to engage both Indian and Pakistani leadership towards a peaceful resolution, unquote. That's the statement put out by Marco Rubio, the U.S. Secretary of State. He says the U.S. is monitoring the situation between India and Pakistan and that hopes this situation ends quickly and they will continue to engage both India and Pakistan for a peaceful resolution of this issue. Right, so if you're just tuning in, you're watching a special broadcast here on DD India. India has responded by carrying out strikes targeting terror infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir in retaliation for the 22nd April Pahalgam terror attack. The Defense Ministry statement saying 9 sites were targeted, and the Indian government making it clear that its actions were focused, measured and non-escalatory in nature. The statement goes on to say no Pakistani military facilities have been targeted and that India has demonstrated considerable restraint in selection of targets and method of execution. And General Yadav saying that this was also a technology demonstration on the part of Indian Armed Forces that it can hit targets at will inside Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, and that the onus now is on Pakistan to respond responsibly to the Indian strikes targeting terror infrastructure while not targeting Pakistani civilian, economic or military targets. Akshay, walk our viewers through the latest inputs you're getting and put it into context for our viewers as well. Akshay?
You know, we have seen Pakistan has been a master at propaganda and master at forgery as well. You know, fake news, misleading claims, all of these areas are where Pakistan excels. You know, it has not only been fooling India, it has been fooling the entire world when it comes to its terror camps, its terror groups, their infrastructure and the funding that it provides to these dreaded terrorists to attack other countries, and in fact to call out the fake news. India has also been trying to call out all of these fake news, but tonight when action is being taken against Pakistan and terror groups inside Pakistan, there are a flurry of fake news that are being spread, and we have to also be aware of the kind of fake news that are being spread by ISPR, that is the official media of Pakistan, that claims that 15 locations hit inside India by Pakistani missiles. Srinagar Air Base has been struck by Pakistan Air Force and Brigadier Headquarters of Indian Army destroyed. So all of these are fake news that is being spread inside Pakistan, and it is the Indian Army that is debunking these fake news and fake claims that are being spread so as to ensure that the Indian civilians, the Indian population remains aware. It is not misled by these kind of fake news by Pakistani side. Soon after the attack, while Pakistan has not been anticipating it, we have seen the kind of attack that has been taken place inside Pakistan. Soon after that, Pakistan retaliated with artillery strikes, the best thing that it can do usually, which it has an expertise in, to provide also cover fire to the terrorists. But after that, since the attack, consistently both of the sides are exchanging fires. There is also good news coming in from, according to sources, that all the pilots that have conducted these operations inside Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir are accounted for, which means that they have returned safely back to India. So all these claims that are being made inside Pakistan, that so many aircraft of the Indian Air Force have been struck, is all fake news. Most likely, according to the sources, forces, the action was taken, by the Indian aircraft using sophisticated technology, firing from miles, hundreds of miles away, as far as the areas such as Bahawalpur are concerned. So the action that has been taken place by the Indian Armed Forces has been precision based, and the sources are indicating that all the pilots have already been accounted for and they have returned safely after conducting this heroic operation inside Pakistan against terror groups and terror infrastructure.
Indeed, so as my colleague Akshay is pointing out, 9 sites in all were targeted as part of Operation Sindoor. And General Yadav, coming back to the point you were mentioning there a short while ago, what's the significance of these strikes? Some of them, as you mentioned, were carried out across the international border between India and Pakistan. What's the significance? Because we are given to understand that even in 2019 in Balakot, for instance, it was conducted across the LOC, the line of control. But these strikes also targeted the western Punjab, the province of Punjab in Pakistan, especially Bahawalpur and Muridke, the terrorist infrastructure headquarters, so to speak, of Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Toiba. General Yadav?
You see, technically, if you look at it, in case had our aircrafts crossed the IB, international border, which is internationally recognized, there is no dispute on that. In case you cross the IB by any military means, so it is an act of war. And once there is an act of war, the opponent is free to retaliate. So that is one major action. So since we have not violated, so basically, yes, it is an act of war in a manner that it is a precise, very pinpoint target that we have chosen. So that is the implication. As far as LOC is concerned, yes, there is a flexibility as regards to our conduct of operation within RT ranges, within air ranges, as long as we are not crossing it, primarily to keep the sanctity. If you remember, in 1999 in Kargil, we had not crossed the LC, though it would cross that LC that concluded much earlier, because we could have cut off their Adam bases and other things. But we did not do it primarily to ensure that sanctity of LC is maintained, because this being an agreement between two countries. So we have ensured that we have fought, means so far whatever has happened, it has been done in a most sensible manner. If you remember our Honorable Prime Minister, he had given a statement 2 years back that it is not an era of war. So he has stuck to this policy of his. So we have fought means what action we have taken, it is a very, very sensible action, wherein we do not want to escalate it, and at the same time we want to convey a message. Look, if you continue the terror strikes within India, India is not going to sit down and take it lightly. And they have also demonstrated the capability. Look, we can do much more damage to you. So better you fall in line and see to it that you do not support the terror setup that you have in future. Ramesh?
Right, and just to go back to the point my colleague Akshay was making, that Pakistan is indulging in misinformation and disinformation as well. And just to remind our viewers that please do not go by what you are hearing or watching on social media or other news sources. The Indian government making it very clear that fake news is being spread by the Pakistani agencies, and some of which are claiming to have hit locations inside India by missiles as a retaliatory strike by Pakistan, and a base in India has also been struck by the Pakistan Air Force. These are all fake news, and no brigade headquarters of the Indian Army were destroyed. So please do not go by what you're picking up. Stay tuned to DD India for authentic, authoritative information following the latest Indian strikes in retaliation to the 22nd April Pahalgam terror attack. Let me recap the developments for you if you're just tuning in. India carried out Operation Sindoor targeting 9 sites in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, targeting in particular terrorist infrastructure obtaining in Pakistan and PoK. where terrorist attacks against India have been planned and directed. As I mentioned, altogether 9 sites were targeted, and India is saying that its actions were focused, measured and non-escalatory in nature. It goes on to say no Pakistani military facilities have been targeted, and India, it says, has demonstrated considerable restraint in the selection of targets and method of execution. And in the meantime, the Indian NSA Ajit Doval has spoken to his US counterpart Marco Rubio, who in turn has put out a statement saying the US is monitoring the situation and that it hopes the situation ends quickly and the issue stands resolved between India and Pakistan. That's the statement put out by Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, just a short while ago on social media platform X. And President Trump himself has responded as well. He's saying he hopes the tensions end quickly. As my guest General Yadav is pointing out, the onus now is clearly on Pakistan to respond if it chooses to and escalate in a manner that might not go down well with the global community. All eyes on how Pakistan chooses to respond, if at all, and India saying that it has acted responsibly to the 22nd April Pahalgam terror attack. Right, General Yadav, do stay on. Let me also bring in Dr. Aparna Pandey, Director Initiative on Future of India and South Asia, joining us from Hutton Institute. Dr. Pandey, welcome to this special broadcast. Your thoughts on what has panned out in the last several hours, India responding to the Pahalgam attack by carrying out strikes targeting terror infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Dr. Pandey?
Yes, thanks for the invitation. This was predictable. India was going to strike. It was supposed to be a punitive action, which would not be escalatory. And as we see, the Indian military's sort of statement, which was released, says these are focused, measured, and de-escalatory. It has targeted only terrorist infrastructure, which includes the headquarters of LET, Lashkar-e-Taiba in Muridke, and of Jaish-e-Mohammed in Bahawalpur.
Dr. Pandey, what do you make of the US statements coming out in the last several hours, including from President Trump, who says he hopes the situation ends quickly, and Marco Rubio speaking to his Indian counterpart Ajit Doval, and he putting out a statement on social media platform X that the US is keeping a watch on the situation and it hopes that the situation is dialed down in the next several hours going forward. So your thoughts on the way the US is approaching this situation?
I think the US has 3 aims right now. One, there are enough crises around the world that the Trump administration is dealing with. The Ukraine-Russia conflict, the Middle East, whether it's Israel, Gaza, or Israel and Iran, and the Houthis, and the potential issue with China. And so the United States would like fewer escalatory conflicts. And these are 2 nuclear armed neighbors. Well, for the United States, it is important that the sort of any action that India takes or that Pakistan takes in response does not take either country up the ladder towards a nuclear or an all-out war. So I believe the statements are simply to state that the US is engaged. The US officials are speaking to Indian and Pakistani officials, and they would like the 2 countries to de-escalate once the Indian strike has taken place, and if Pakistan strikes back, that strike should also not lead either country up the escalatory ladder. I see the statements and the tweets put out in this context.
Dr. Pandey, I'm not sure whether you heard General Rameshwar Yadav speaking a short while ago on this broadcast. He says the onus is now on Pakistan to choose how to respond, if at all it wants to. India says it has behaved responsibly. As I mentioned from the statement, it says its actions have been focused, measured and non-escalatory in nature. But in the meantime, the Indian Embassy in Washington DC has put out a statement as well. It says that India has credible leads, technical inputs, testimony of the survivors and other evidence pointing towards the clear involvement of Pakistan-based terrorists in this attack. It goes on to say that India's actions have been focused and precise. They were measured, responsible and designed to be non-escalatory nature. No Pakistani civilian, economic or military targets have been hit. Only known terror groups were targeted. Will it go down, sit well with the world community?
So, I believe that most capitals knew that India would have to respond, just as it had in 2016 and 2019. And they hoped that the Indian response would be punitive but not escalatory. And as of now, that is the Indian response. However, Pakistan has not seen the Indian response as being punitive and non-escalatory. So how Pakistan responds, we still have to wait and see. Whether they choose to do what they did in 2016, which was deny that anything happened, or 2019, where they struck back, and then after that, both countries it did not escalate further. So I don't think Pakistan buys the Indian argument, but most other capitals do understand that India has been suffering from terror attacks, and that the origin of most of these terror groups is inside Pakistani territory.
Dr. Pandey, knowing the Pakistani Army Chief General Asim Munir, his strategic calculus and orientation, what do you think he would be planning, or what would he be thinking as we speak? Would you want to hazard a guess?
I don't think I would like to hazard a guess, but I will say two things. One, I'm sure you know that 6 days before the attacks took place, General Asim Munir gave a public speech in which he referred to India-Pakistan conflict going back to partition, to the two-nation theory and the idea of Pakistan, and refer to the conflict between the two countries as being between Hindus and Muslims. Refer to Kashmir as a jugular vein of Pakistan, and reiterated support for Kashmir. So 6 days after that, this terror attack takes place, in which civilians are targeted based on their religious identity. I believe that General Asim Munir has benefited from this. He was facing domestic pressure from former Prime Minister Imran Khan and his supporters. And any time there are tensions between India and Pakistan, or there's an escalation towards war, or there is a resumption of anything to do with Kashmir, the Pakistani military always benefits, because the Pakistani public rallies behind the state and especially behind its military. So I believe General Asim Munir must be feeling reasonably confident right now. Whether that confidence lasts, we'll have to wait and see.
Dr. Pandey, from putting the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance to these latest strikes targeting terror infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, you think the noose will further tighten around Pakistan's neck, or you think this is the last we've seen or heard from New Delhi?
Ramesh, let's go back. Terror attacks inside India, inside Indian Kashmir, the escalation of tensions between the two neighbors goes back to 1989. This is 35, 36 years now that this has been happening. India initially used strategic restraint and international diplomacy. Then it started to use strikes inside Pakistani territory against terror groups. It also Article 370's abrogation in 2019. So India has adopted several different strategies. Unfortunately, till the day that Pakistan eliminates all terror groups inside its territory, every few years, you and I will be having this conversation again.